Welcome everyone to HogvilleNET Hoops. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson. It is Wednesday, November 19th, Wednesday night. It is the final day of the week-long early signing period. We know Arkansas got off to a great start. John Calipari with J.J. Andrews, top 10 rated five-star wing at a Little Rock Christian Academy. Abdu Torre, 6'5" wing at a Notre Dame High School in West Haven, Connecticut, top 30, 4-star. So those guys got their business out of the way. They were already committed. And now you're trying to count that next chicken maybe before it hatched. Maybe there was a little bit of that. Like Arkansas was in the lead for a while here for Bob Alladottton. I'm convinced of that. Things started to shift in the last 48 to 72 hours. That started becoming more and more apparent to me. It's why I started easing off my confidence level as of yesterday when I came on last night, not even a full day ago, about the fourth quarter, the 10-minute mark of the Arkansas Winthrop wild roller coaster. Uh, Good on Arkansas to finish that game the right way to win it. But we talked recruiting down the stretch of that game. And I said, look, there's a lot going on right now that doesn't necessarily favor Arkansas. A source out in Virginia telling me it's Maryland and Georgetown actually now coming down the stretch. Another, got conflicting reports on Calipari's willingness to either up NIL to stay in this or he's done. He's, I'm not budging anymore. Let's see what happens. And so I had conflicting reports on that. Circled back to the staff yesterday late in the day before their game, on a game day. And I was told, look, we know we're in a dogfight. The day prior, there was some curiosity on behalf of the staff as to where things stood in this situation. And it was a lot shakier ground in the last 48 hours than it seemed to be leading up to the weekend and through the weekend. But what emerged coming out of the weekend, and one of the last intel segments I did late last week or sometime last week, I believe, was that I had a source that said Maryland had upped the NIL offer to a place that really put the Terrapins in a position to maybe overcome an Arkansas lead. And I think we've seen this multiple times, whether Arkansas ended up getting the player in the end or in some circumstances Calipari decided, no, I'm not gonna budge on NIL anymore. Go ahead, take them. This is a situation where even if that's the case, you can't spin this any other way than Arkansas lost out on this recruit. They were in this up until the end, up until yesterday, acknowledging they were in a dogfight. They hadn't let go of the bone. And so there's no other way to spin that. Even if it did get to a point where Calipari said enough's enough, you still moved on from players that you maybe could have brought into your program. The Ratliff twins, we chronicled all this. Another forward in Chase Foster, Arafat Diane. I really feel like Arkansas was already in a position of being behind, even though they were oh so close to Houston, or it seemed that way. It's not horseshoes or hand grenades. You can feel like you're really close, but that was the team that held a lead, had a lead, and maintained the lead and got the thing done. And so I really felt like everything, all the signs were pointing to Calipari pushing his chips, NIL, other family structure incentives, because this is a family oriented decision, I'm told, and you know close to home roots, and you couldn't move Arkansas close to Silver Springs, Maryland, in the DC area, but maybe you could make things comfortable, for the family, for whether they're in Arkansas for a year or 2 years, if Alladottton had made that choice. But in the end, Arkansas loses out on this player, and we can't call this anything other than what it is. And I put I put a meme out, a GIF, whatever they call them, of a, basically it's a whiff. You missed. Even if in the final hours Calipari made a decision not to up the ante, at this stage in it, I mean that's a call that you made, but you made several other calls on maybe other possibilities had you gone in those directions where you would have gotten, added to this two as it stands now, a two-player class as you wrap up the early period. So, in fairness to the situation, going back through it, even the strongest source I had saying, look, I believe the source saying two things. I believe Calipari's wrapped this up. This was coming off the heels of that Arkansas visit, and also told me, and he'll get it done early. And at that time, it was not clear: is he going to wait to the spring? Is he getting it done early? And then we learned, in fact, he was going to make the announcement on the final day of the early period. Today, chooses Maryland. I mean, everyone knows this by now as we record this nearly 5 minutes in. So half the information was right. The other half was correct too. At the time it came out, Arkansas was in the lead. I'm convinced of that. I had just enough information to acknowledge that. But we also acknowledge that there are others that thought that don't sleep on Maryland or Georgetown. We've really kind of said for a while Kentucky really wasn't in the mix here, and the only way that would flip is if Kentucky threw insane money, which it can and will do and has done. Just didn't look like it was going to in this situation. Either way, Maryland, the final source information on the part where Maryland up the bag apparently pushed Maryland in the lead. And whether or not Calipari countered, maybe we'll find that out later. Again, I had conflicting information on whether he would or not. And again, we reported that last night. Transparency, I believe in it. The source that told us he thought he had it wrapped up. Remember, I pushed back, talked about it multiple times. Are you telling me, source, that you've got it from the family or from Arkansas's coaching staff that there is a silent commitment? It's just waiting to go public on announcement day. No, I can't tell you that. I don't have that. Remember? So we've talked about that. We've acknowledged all these other things. And it's, the fact that in the last, again, day or so, things felt less and less secure for Arkansas and more like momentum was shifting. That's why we lowered from an 8 to a 5.5 on that scale of 1 to 10 confidence level. In truth, I should have said I'm on the fence, but I stayed positive and just above the line. And I told you why yesterday, because I have a hard time believing that Calipari is going to lose to Buzz Williams and or Ed Cooley. Well, I got to believe it now. I got to eat that. I got to own it. So, we were never in a situation where we gave a full throated, oh, this is going to happen, but we had a strong confidence level. And that confidence level in recruiting can evaporate in a short period of time. That started to happen again in the last, as of yesterday. And as we got into today, it became more and more clear that 5.5 started to sink below the midline. And then as we got closer to the announcement, it was, pretty much obvious that it was not going to be Arkansas. So here we are. We say bye-bye, Baba, bye-bye, Baba, bye-bye. And let's not forget, Arkansas did a good job again getting these two. J.J. Andrews. I mean, the young man, 3 games into the season already, 33.7 points, 20.3 rebounds per game. I caught the first 2 games last night against Conway, 40 points and 21 rebounds. I mean, this guy is, this was Arkansas's number 1 priority, by the way. Number 1 priority. I don't care who's ranked higher than him. This was always number 1 on the board because he's a legacy and because he's really, really, really good. And you have to look at how he impacts winning. He's got the biggest motor I think I've ever seen, the greatest effort player I think I've ever seen. And he's just a winner. And I think, everything that you put together with his recruitment explains why he was number 1 on Arkansas's board. I won't hear anybody say he wasn't because I know better. I have I have the knowledge that is a fact. Okay, that doesn't mean that other guys aren't priorities. Bob Alladottton was a priority. Abdou Torre, a priority that you got. Arkansas, I think with Deanne, I think once it became more and more clear that they needed to put more focus in a situation that they might have a better chance of landing Bob Alladottton, Calipari made that choice. I don't second guess that decision. I think Deanne, it's been Houston all along. When his guardians told me, and we brought you the intel every time I had conversations with him, every time, repeatedly, Houston's the team to beat. They are in the lead. And the best I could come up with, well, Arkansas seems to get closer and closer, be in a real position here to swing this, but they're not there yet. And the only other thing that's going on there is that maybe the handler, maybe the Guardian's running a smoke screen for Cal. Outside chance of that. I didn't believe that. And I said that. I said that doesn't seem likely. That's the only thing I could see here that helps Arkansas at this point because they could never fully close the gap. But I think it was smart of Calipari to move on. I'm not going to second guess him moving on from the Ratliff twins or Foster. Arkansas was in the lead here and in a strong position to close this until the end. And so however that played out with that increased package from Maryland, whatever promises were made, either Arkansas countered and couldn't overcome it, or Calipari said, well, I'm at a stopping point. Remember, back when this situation with the Ratliffs and Calipari backed off, and the same with Chase Foster, one of the things I said is, I'm going to rank you what I think this means. I'm going to give a multiple choice and then I'm going to give a degree of probability. I said the biggest thing is it seems to me Calipari feels confident that he's wrapping up something else, whether that's Deanne, Alladottton, or both. Turns out neither. I said the second most uh, reasonable or likely situation was he felt like he was in a good enough position with either one of those players or both that he had a shot at getting them. But if he didn't, the players he backed away from, it was he did not he was not in a position of, okay, I'm going to go all in on those guys. Go ahead and move away from them. If it works out with Alladottton and or Deanne, great. If not, save it for something else. Whether that's putting something together for the front line or those 3-4 combos, however you get it done with your retention and then out of the portal. Well, he's not been a big, strong portal recruiter. And this points to other possibilities. A guy like Mika Mirinen, Arkansas has been in on that. He's visited. Arkansas is one of the leaders for Mika Mirinen. Now, you're going to have to wait until the spring. There are other players, top 5 rated 5-star, they're backcourt players, guards, Caleb Holt, Brandon McCoy Jr., Jordan Smith Jr., and the staff told me just yesterday that they feel like they're still in a position to win, not phrasing it in terms of we'll get all of them or we're going to get 2 of them, but phrasing it in terms of we're in the mix for all 3. They don't feel like they're out on any of the 3, and the 3 have said effectively they're going to wait till the spring. Now you can point to it and say, well, isn't that obvious now? Today was the final day of the early period. There's no more wiggle room to make a commitment and get something done early. Well, that's true, but not if they've already done something secretly and already done their paperwork and it's already been certified by the NCAA clearinghouse, and whichever school they chose, they're keeping it under wraps. This has actually played out the last few early signing periods where players have waited a bit later to make their announcement and let it go public, and it was actually accomplished in that week-long window when you have to get it done. So some things can be held out from the public eye and actually be done. So we don't rule that out, but it's likely that with those 3, again, those 3 top 5 rated 5-star guards, that you're going to have to wait till the spring. Mika Mirinen, again, he's from Finland, top 10 rated 5-star, 6'10". I call him a 4-5 at the college level. Maybe he'll be a 3-4 at the pro level, but I think more of a 4-5 at the college level. And again, playing pro ball over in Europe, you're at the spring at the soonest. Wouldn't be shocked if that carried over into the summer. We'll see what happens there. But Arkansas is in the mix with all 4 of those players. Now, here are some other things that I talked about last night. I brought this information when we talked recruiting, and I'm just going to repeat it here now. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time. We're just over 13 minutes, and we're going to dip out of here. Several things. Arkansas, what I mentioned last night is keep an eye on international players. And I was told that Arkansas, looking at different international players, a lot of that stuff's not going to play out again until the spring anyway. So you keep an eye on that. Arkansas's got possibilities there. And that goes for every position on the court. Front line 5-4, 3-4, guards, 1s and 2s, wings. I mean, all of it. Arkansas is recruiting on the international level. Arkansas has, and I asked specifically, what about these G League players that are coming out, have eligibility? The NCAA determines how much they have, and now they can play college ball and get paid NIL. Would Arkansas, we've already seen some of that stuff play out in players coming out of the G League and committing to, Division I schools. And I was told Arkansas absolutely will be in play for those if it makes sense. And if it's, somebody they think they can, bring into the fold, and it makes someone that can help the team, not just be on the roster. And you got to think someone coming out of the G League would be able to help you. If they played in the G League, they should be able to come back to college and be effective. All right, so Arkansas is acknowledging they'll be involved there. Other possibilities for reclasses. Remember, I'll use the example, or there are plenty of examples of players that make their reclass decisions after the season. Bob Alladottton got it done before and made his reclass announcement. Some of them will wait till the spring, and that will open up some possibilities for Arkansas for other 2027 players, even frontline players. Abena Ekizi, a 5-star big man is one that I'm told is considering that. And I know Arkansas has been recruiting him and is offering him a scholarship. So that's one example, a 7 foot or 6'11", 7 foot big man. Just one example in 2027 where perhaps there's a pathway for Arkansas to be in play there as a reclass, and then he'd be part of this freshman class, just adding him later. So there's this. We've said all along that the most likely scenario was Arkansas would end up with 3 commitments and signings by the early period. This will be the first class at Arkansas where that's not been the case for Calipari. Um, the first class he brought with him, and that happened in the spring, but he had those players committed. Some of those had already been committed to him at Kentucky, but he brought 3 with him. And then this last class, Darius Acuff Jr., Malik Thomas, Isaiah Sealy, all 3 of those got it done early. So even though you're at 2 in the early period, you still have a pathway to get at least 3. If Calipari, if the dominoes were to fall the right way, he'll go to 5. We've said that multiple times. In fact, we brought you that intel months ago that I had a source that said familiar with his thinking about this particular class, and that if things fell the right way, he would exceed that 3 or 4 that he talks about as kind of his consistent blueprint. That he'd go beyond that, and so that there's still a possibility for that. Yes, today was the day that both Arafat and Deanne committed to Houston and Baba Alladottton committed to Maryland. We knew Deanne for weeks. Arkansas was out on that. So this with Alladottton probably stings a little bit for some Arkansas fans. But just like I did a second ago, clicking off the photo, it's time to say bye-bye, bye-bye. Bye-bye, Baba. Don't be sad, man. Calipari is the best recruiter in college basketball. Nothing changes that. Did he miss on this player? He did. We're not going to pretend like, oh no, Arkansas said thanks, but no thanks. That didn't happen. Again, I need more information to determine, was there another move for Calipari at the end that he decided, no, I'm good, or did he, step once more and it still didn't work out? That part I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. You're down to the wire. You're trying to get the player. You can't, with a straight face, so you walked away, so you didn't lose anything. I don't see it that way. Arkansas lost this recruiting battle, one way or the other. However you try to chop it up, that's what happens. We have to own it. Source information is great. It can be pristine. It can be 100% correct in real time, and then over time, until it's official and things change, what was once true is no longer true. You know, I'm a guy that's never been struck by lightning, but if it happens tomorrow, it will no longer be true. But that doesn't mean the information was wrong when I said it. Right? That's how this works. And recruiting is wild, man, especially with NIL. No excuses. Arkansas lost this recruiting battle. Congratulations to Buzz Williams in Maryland. Um, you know, uh, there's plenty more again opportunities for Arkansas to round out this class with quality, even if you have to wait a while. And that may be just what it is. All right, we are about to sign off, 18 and a half minutes in. Before I do, I just want to recap really quickly last night's game. We talked about it at the time, but you know, right now I think there's reason and valid reasons for concern about this Arkansas team. Struggling, defending teams like Samford, and then last night Winthrop. Some other issues we've seen even prior to those games, even with blowout wins over, Southern in the season opener, UCA eventually. Even in those games, Arkansas had major struggle points for long stretches. This is not unlike last year. What's unlike last year is you're not really dealing with as many injuries, but you are dealing with a lot of, pieces, really talented pieces, not quite fitting together. The communication, I think, is off on defense right now. I don't think there's great communication. Players seem out of position. The closeouts are awkward, or they're not in a position to close out, or 2 players bail and not sure which one was supposed to, take, switch out or not switch. Those kinds of things. You're seeing a lot of that. And then on both ends of the court, I think Arkansas is lacking the kind of physicality, honestly, that it lacked last year, and that we thought there would be improvement there. There's a lot of question marks right now. But I think one of the biggest things and the biggest takeaway for me from last night was Arkansas found a way to win and got out a win, and they weren't holding on to a lead late. They were down 5 with just over a minute left. They had to string together multiple winning possessions on defense. They got 4 of them, 4 stops in a row after it seemed like they couldn't get any stops. 15 made threes, a lot of scores right at the basket for Winthrop. They got 4 consecutive stops wrapped around 3 consecutive wins on offense, where in each scenario, on a night where Arkansas was playing 1-on-5, it seemed like, despite some of the scoring and eventually that stuff catches up with you and chokes you out in a tight game. Arkansas assisted on the last 3 scores for 6 points. So everything was not just going right. Arkansas made plays and made sure it went right. So despite all of the other question marks, all of the issues, yes, Duke's next week. You got Jackson State on Friday. Despite all of that, I think the biggest storyline coming out of that was Arkansas snatched victory out of the jaws of defeat by making plays at both ends. Really, really good plays. There wasn't a sense of Arkansas got lucky. It was a sense of Arkansas took control of the game, understood that it had enough time to take control, and made the right plays at both ends. It was a thing of beauty. Those last several possessions on both sides of the ball were a thing of beauty. And then you hope to build on that, get some confidence. Hey, we can be a damn good team. We need to not put ourselves in a position where we're having to be really good at the end to salvage a win. We need to, make that statement throughout. And then if we are in a close game, we're proving we can figure it out and get over the hump. Arkansas did a much better job finishing out a tight game than it did on the road against Michigan State, where it took some ill-advised threes and really didn't help itself at the end. Last night, everything dialed up at both ends down the stretch was almost perfect. And kudos to the Razorbacks to moving 4-1. All right, thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET Hoops. I'm Kevin McPherson, your host. Please hit subscribe, like, and share if you haven't done already. Appreciate all of you. Until next time, be good, and we'll see you soon.